Right, hi guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. And what could be said about this Formula E race at Hyderabad? Well, all I've got to say is some drivers think it's hyper bad. Oh, God. That was awful, wasn't it? That was awful. Everyone's clicking off the video now. That's not done your retention any favours, Josh. What an idiot. But yes, it certainly was good for some, but terrible for a lot of drivers, wasn't it? It was absolutely awful up and down the field. For the majority of the field, it was all up and down, and there were more downs than ups, is all I'm going to say. There was a lot of disappointed drivers leaving the Indian Grand Prix. So, yeah, let's get into the drivers, shall we? So, before I kick things off, of course, let's take a look at the current Cruel Room standings then. They're on the screen now for you to take a look at and enjoy. Thanks as always go out to Dan for providing me with this scoreboard. Without him, the series would be more pointless than it already is, and he's done a phenomenal job at doing this so last minute. So thank you so much, Dan. If you've never seen this series before, of course, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Look out for bonus points though, as you may have seen already on the Cruel Corner standings. I do award bonus points on the very rare occasion that some drivers that do something extra special. And as always, minus points are very rarely offered, but sometimes if you do something extra special but for all the wrong reasons, I'll slap some minus points on you. Could we see a driver being awarded them this race perhaps? So we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner. It's no, it's not Jake Denny. It's Pascal. No, it's not Pascal Wehrlein either. Shit. Who won it? Give me a sec. Oh, that's right, of course. It's Jean-Eric Vergne. Bloody hell, here he is. After an absolute nightmare and a disaster of the first 3 rounds, that's all that could be said about that. It really has been a real uphill battle for the DS Penske squad, hasn't it? Not just for Vergne, but for Vandoorne as well. And Vergne, on the back of a cracking qualifying, a strong qualifying there to net himself P2 on the grid, he just drove a fantastic race to take victory, didn't he? It's almost like the experience is really showing through with these Gen 3 cars. Once again, you know, we had this situation where a really experienced driver was holding up a car that had far much more percentage behind it for the majority of the race when he did sneak into the lead, of course. And he just kept him behind. He managed to keep Nick Cassidy behind, who had at one stage 4% more energy. That's like a lap and a half more energy than the car in front, and he could not find a way around him. Vergne was positioning that car perfectly through the turn 3 hairpin there, and at the other turn 16 was a potential overtaking opportunity as well, wasn't it? And so, you know, he defended in the places that he needs to defend well in, and he drove a phenomenal race for that. Absolutely perfect stuff. The reason he got the lead was, and I'm convinced I've got this right, was Sebastian Buemi took attack, and then had to take attack again because he didn't get it, if I remember rightly. I might be slightly confused by that because there was so much happening. It was one of those races, again, where Formula E, you always seem to think, hang on a minute, how's that car got there? It just appears out of nowhere. You look at its P13, then it's up to P4. And it really is that bizarre again. And with all the incidents and shenanigans that were happening during the race and the late safety car and people still to take attack mode, it dropped some cars down, some up. We had the penalties as well, didn't we? Which was, I think, all bullshit, to be honest with you. But, you know, we'll leave that for that. But yeah, I'm talking everything about other than Jean-Eric Vergne's race because it was impeccable, wasn't it? The race weekend was phenomenal. Fantastic. He's driven really well. A great qualifying grid spot. And then you see how little percentage he's got, especially to Cassidy behind. The other cars around him were matching him with energy, but Vergne looked in the weaker position because he was the lead car. Everyone else were getting a slight slipstream off him, not you know, cleaner air. So it's difficult to work out really, but Vergne drove an impeccable race and took victory overall. So yeah, I think he took the lead on merit, didn't he? He did overtake Buemi, but I'm sure there was a moment where Buemi went into the attack mode once, didn't activate it, which was after the old Evans bird shunt. Didn't activate, so then he had to go for it again, and then he ended up losing out to Cassidy. So then that lent, you know, it was like Cassidy behind instead of Buemi, I think, anyway. But yeah, overall, phenomenal effort by Jean-Eric Vergne. It's going to be 11 points on the Cruel Corner to him. Fantastic job. DS Penske deserve it. Vergne deserves it. His championship challenge starts now. But he's already like 50 points behind Wehrlein. So yeah, it's certainly a tall order, but at least he's got a victory. So yeah, congratulations, Jean-Eric Vergne. 11 points to you. As mentioned, of course, finishing in second place, it is Nick Cassidy in the Envision. He did a stunning job, didn't he? Once again, he seems to be the only guy that likes to do overtakes in this new Gen 3 car, but he just couldn't get around Vergne. He did some great moves at the early part of the race, didn't he, to make his way up from 9th on merit. Then the attack mode routine that he did, I can't remember what he did and how he did it, but in the end that worked out for him. And the shenanigans that happened with Fenestraz, Gunther, Bird and Evans, all that kicked off. That helped him out greatly. And then for no apparent reason, 1 minute it was miles away from the podium in P4, and then all of a sudden it was right on the back of them all. It was unbelievable. Then he made a move for Buemi, got that successfully sorted because Buemi had to go for attack mode again. I'm convinced that's what happened. And overall, Nick Cassidy, fantastic race, but just couldn't find his way around Vergne, could he? Just could not find his way around Vergne. So for Nick Cassidy, just because he couldn't get round Vergne doesn't mean I'm going to dock him any points. I think the qualifying, wasn't as strong as Buemi once again, but has to be commended for the charge through the field, and he seems to be the only driver that's really got a handle of these cars to have that much more percentage than everyone around him. Well, in fact, the rest of the grid. It was really, really, really strong performance from him, and it is going to be 11 points on the cruel corner to him. I'm not docking him off anything. I'm not knocking anything off. He couldn't get round Vergne because Vergne was fantastic at defending. Cassidy proved he could overtake round that circuit, but Vergne was just one step too many. We saw it with Grassi and Hughes, didn't we, at Mexico? Hughes couldn't find a way round. Experience comes through, I do feel. So, yeah, Nick Cassidy, it was a shame for him to miss out on victory, but a thoroughly deserved P2 finish. With all that battery left, he could have gone round for another 2 laps. Crazy, crazy stuff. So, yeah, congratulations, Nick Cassidy, on your second place finish and 11 points on the cruel corner. Then we come to Antonio Felix da Costa in the first of the Porsches. That's the first time we've said that this season. The first of the Porsches being da Costa. He's had a struggling first half of the season, hasn't he? The first 3 races have been a bit of a disaster compared to where Wehrlein has been. But this weekend overall, it just played out for him a little bit better than it did Wehrlein. Picking up a lucky podium, it must be said, in the end. Of course, the dramas that unfolded with all the other cars crashing. And, of course, Buemi's penalty, which we'll come to when we get to Buemi's official finishing position anyway. 3rd on the road, of course. Yeah, for da Costa, it's been a solid enough weekend, hasn't it? He was 13th in qualifying. Wehrlein was only 12th. And at least he got on the podium. He deserves it. It hopefully will give him the boost now to continue this momentum going forward. Maybe this weekend he's found something with the car. And yeah, the chaos that is Formula E means I don't really know how he got here. He was ahead of Wehrlein from the start, though, wasn't he? Because Wehrlein slipped down, and then that was it. From there, it was all just much of a muchness, and they were pretty much line astern, working the way up after that initial accident and incident, and all the safety car periods just bunched everyone up again. It was so confusing to judge. Why did I start a cruel corner of doing Formula E as if I know what I'm talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about Formula 1, but Formula E is just chaotic, and I rarely know how cars ended up where they did. But for Antonio Felix da Costa, it's going to be 8 points on the cruel corner to him. I think he drove well this weekend, kept himself out of trouble when everyone else was making mistakes, crashing, going off, going wide, cutting corners, picking up penalties. Da Costa wasn't one of them, so yeah, fair play to him for that, and he deserved the podium. 8 points to him. Pascal Wehrlein finishes P4 in his Porsche, the second of the Porsches. First time off the podium for Wehrlein. He's only finished first or second so far this season. A P4 finish, though, with his main championship protagonist outside the points will be big relief to him, because it looked very much like advantage Jake Dennis, didn't it? Up until the last part, up until after that safety car period, it was advantage Jake Dennis. Wehrlein struggling on the fringes of the top 10. Dennis looking like he was on for a podium at minimum. It all was looking in Dennis's favour, and then there you go. Wham bam, thank you ma'am, says Rene Rast, and the tables swing once again. So yeah, Pascal Wehrlein's race weekend overall, as mentioned, qualified 12th, stumbled down as low as 16th at one stage, was unable to pick his way through the field as fast as he'd liked, I'm sure, but by taking it steady and pacing himself more, kept himself out of the trouble zones, kept himself out of those incidents and accidents that were taking everyone out. You know, cars going wide, all the drama that was happening. He kept out of it, avoided it all, and picked the places up nicely. So yeah, here he is, Pascal Wehrlein. And he's going to get the same score as his teammate. It's going to be 8 points to him on the cruel corner. You always judge by your teammate. He out-qualified him by 1 position, finished behind him by 1 position, and takes a massive lead in the championship over his main championship protagonist now. 18 points to the gap already. So yeah, he deserves the same as the Costa, and that's why it's 8 points. So yeah, 8 points to Pascal Wehrlein. Then we come to Sergio Setta Camara, finishing 5th in the Neo 333. What a fantastic, fantastic effort by Setta Camara. What could be said? He's had a troubled start, hasn't he? Ticktum's been looking the better driver in the first 3 races, it must be said. The better qualifying performance, the points finished last time out in Saudi. And you know, Setta Camara wasn't looking that great. They locked out the 8th row of the grid, so all much of a muchness, just 1 position behind each other. That's fair enough. I can't remember which way round it was either, to be honest, but it's all irrelevant when you're locking out the same row. And then in the race, he just kept himself out of trouble, didn't he? Apart from that one moment going through the turn 1, turn 2 complex, where he got really, really wide. All the dust was flying up. He was sideways, and everyone was thinking, oh, God, that's heading for the wall. But thankfully for him and thankfully for the Neo team, he kept it out the wall and kept going. It crossed the line in 8th, I believe, but was lifted up to 6th with the 5-second time penalties that other drivers had received for track limits. And then obviously Buemi's subsequent penalty after the line elevated him to P5. This is the strongest finish that Neo have had for quite some time. I'm trying to think the last time when it was. I know Turvey had a P7 finish, I believe, last season. And Ticktum picked up a 10th as well, didn't he, that race? So, you know, in terms of points, this is the most points they've secured in a single race, as well as a highest place finish for quite some time. You'll probably have to go back to the Gen 1 cars, I'd imagine, because Gen 2 was a total write-off for them, wasn't it? But yeah, nonetheless, an impressive drive by Setta Camara. Great that Neo have scored some big points now. That's 11 points on the board for them, so that elevates them up the team's championship. Early days, I know, but it's good to see him doing well. And overall, Setta Camara scores 10 points on the cruel corner. It's a perfect 10. It has to be. He's driven really, really well. Like I said, he's been under the thumb a little bit of Dan Ticktum the first 3 races, but this time he just drove his own and did really, really well. So congratulations, Setta Camara. A perfect 10. Then we come to Ollie Rowland, finishing in 6th place after crossing the line 4th. Yes, crossed the line 4th. 5-second time penalty would have dropped him outside the points, but then other cars behind him have 5-second time penalties, so it kept him in the points and kept him 6th. So there you go. I don't know how it works either. But Mahindra, let's not forget that Mahindra's own race and Rowland scores points, so that is worthy of a nice big tick there for the sponsors, for the team, for Ollie Rowland. Nice to see him have a good result. He's had a disastrous couple of rounds, hasn't he? The first few rounds have not gone his way, but finally nice to see some points for him, as mentioned, at India, the team's home race. Good stuff. And the fact that a 5-second time penalty only dropped in 2 places in the end, you know, I don't know how they were issuing and implementing these track limits, warnings and penalties, because every car was cutting it. The only thing I can think of is there must be another point on the circuit, because it can't have been that turn 1, turn 2 complex, because everyone was running wide every lap. Either everyone got a penalty or didn't. If there's another point of the circuit that we're looking at that we couldn't really see on cameras, then fair enough, I'll admit it, you know, but if it's turn 1, turn 2 complex, then that's bullshit. But nonetheless, points for Ollie Rowland. A strong race overall. 8 points on the cruel corner to him. A nice boost for him because he's had a tough few races. Mahindra haven't really done well apart from at Mexico with de Grassi's podium, so a nice elevation for them. 8 points to Rowland. Then we come to Norman Nato. Here he is finishing in 7th place now. That's absolute madness, isn't it? I think he crossed the line 10th, if I remember rightly, or was it 9th? Either way, he didn't get penalties, everyone else did. Norman Nato, though, fastest lap point as well, didn't he? He got that. He secured the fastest lap point, so well done to him for that. Great effort by Norman, and what makes it even greater is the fact that he had to have a pit stop during the race for a puncture. Was unseen by the commentators, but I noticed it on the board. I saw him go pit. He was about P11, P12 at the time. Pit dropped right to the back of the runners that were still remaining. The safety car period bunched him right up to the back of the pack again, and then it all kicked off ahead. There were cars going off everywhere, and he picked his way up to 10th or 9th on the road, elevated to 7th with the penalties. And he deserved it. Absolutely deserved it, Norman Nato. The race pace wasn't looking that great by him. Fenestraz had the better qualifying, was running a lot better during the race. But when it mattered, when that checkered flag fell, he got himself out of the pit lane, back into the points, and I think that has to be commended. Safety car or not, that's the luck of the draw. If you get a safety car and it helps you, fair enough, but a puncture wasn't his fault. It was all that debris that was flying around on the circuit, wasn't it, that was causing all the problems, especially Mortara running around. We know wing didn't help. Norman Nato is a 9 points, a solid 9 on the board for him. Like I said, I've just knocked him that one off because the fact that Fenestraz could have been a lot higher this weekend had it not been for his unfortunate involvement with the Evans and Bird shunt, which we'll come to when we get to those drivers, of course. But yeah, Norman Nato didn't look to have the measure of his teammate all weekend. Unfortunate things happened to Fenestraz, unfortunate things happened to Norman Nato, but Norman was able to recover. So congratulations, Norman Nato. 9 points on the cruel corner. Next up is Stoffel Vandoorne in the second of the DS Penske, so a much better weekend. Not just that Vergne secured the victory, but at least Vandoorne secured points as well. It was a difficult qualifying session for Vandoorne, wasn't it? Wasn't great. P17, I believe it was. Crossed the line in P6, but a 5-second time penalty dropped him to 8th, which is where we are discussing him now. Overall, of course, I think he drove well. It was a good recovery from a difficult qualifying session and secured some good points, proving that DS Penske have clearly found something and unlocked something within the car, which is a positive, definitely a positive. But I can't deny the fact that Vergne was up there, a P2 start, a P1 finish, drove a great defensive race as well against Cassidy to secure the victory. So overall, Vergne was more impressive. Vandoorne was solid, so that's why he's going to get a solid 7. It's all I can really judge him by. Again, there was all that much chaos and carnage going off. Crossed the line 6th, finishing 8th, 5-second time penalties, bullshit. I'm not really happy with them all if it was for the turn 1, turn 2. Like I said, if it was for anywhere else, fine. I don't know for definite, but I'm convinced it's just drivers being picked on. So there you go. But yeah, a solid 7 for Vandoorne. And if he'd have finished 6th and crossed the line 6th or whatever, it would have still given him a solid 7. Had he not had the 5-second time penalty, he would have got the same score on the cruel corner. So yeah, 7 points to Vandoorne. Then we come to Andre Lotterer finishing in P9, securing 2 points for the Andretti squad. He was the only driver to score points for Andretti. And P9, the result of everyone's 5-second time penalties around him. I think he crossed the line 12th, didn't he? Elevated to 10th with the penalties and got 9th as a result of Buemi's subsequent penalty after the flag. So, not a great ride once again, was it? Jake Dennis had his difficulties all day, but secured his way and worked his way back up to P3, P4 area before he got wiped out. Lotterer was nowhere. I mean, he couldn't even get past Mortara that had no wing for 3 laps until he was eventually called in with the meatball flag. So, yeah, it was a poor drive again by Lotterer. At least Costa's unlocked something now, it seems, whereas Lotterer in the Andretti is really, really struggling against his teammate. So, for Andre Lotterer, he's just 1 point on the cruel corner. I can't really praise that because he was outside the points at the line, really. He's only got elevated into the points. And even then, getting elevated into the points with all those 5-second time penalties and you're only just 9th. In a car like that, you shouldn't even have to worry about the 5-second time penalties. You should be up there on the podium at least. So, yeah, big shame by Lotterer's standards. And the fact he couldn't overtake Mortara with no wing, yeah, not great, is it? So, yeah, unfortunately, 1 point to Andre Lotterer. Securing the final points-paying position is Edoardo Mortara. Yes, he was the one that had no wing, wasn't he, at the start? What did he plough into on lap 2? What did he plough into the back of? I can't remember now. Who did he hit? What did he hit? I can't remember what he hit. Who did he crash into? It was at turn 3 anyway. Massively missed his braking point. He tried going up the inside of one car and rammed the back of another, did he? I think he hit Bird, now I remember it. Did he tag a Jaguar whilst trying to overtake an Envision? That could be the move. Nonetheless, anyway, he ripped his front wing off, drove round it with 2 laps worth of wings stuck under the car, all the M plates and gurney flaps flying off it here, there and everywhere. causing carbon fibre to shatter and litter all over the track. And then he eventually came into the pits on the same lap that his front wing decided it were going to eject itself completely and dump itself into turn 15. So, yeah, not a great start that, was it? But here he is recovering to a single points paying position as a result of 5-second time penalties dropping other vehicles out the points. But, you know, it's a point nonetheless, isn't it? So for that reason, it is going to be 2 points on the board to Edoardo Mortara. Case of what could have been, because had he not been silly at the start there and missed his braking opportunity, he had a good qualifying. He could have got himself into the top 5 easily, maybe even challenge for a podium. All he had to do was keep himself clean and tidy, and this is what I mean this weekend. There's a few happy drivers up front, but there is a lot of disappointed drivers. I can guarantee pretty much everyone that didn't finish on the podium is not happy with their result, with the exception of maybe Setta, Camara and Norman Nato. Everyone else will be really pissed off with where they finished, because everyone had a chance to win that race, really. And it was nice to see that the fact that the Porsches weren't up there dominating, the Andrettis weren't up there dominating. They were still coming through the field, but just couldn't quite get to the end, to the top of the table. So yeah, I'm convinced there's a lot of annoyed drivers, and he is one of them. So yes, for Edoardo Mortara, he scrapes a point, but really could have been so much more. 2 points on the cruel corner. Just outside the point, and my heart bleeds for him just a little bit, finishing in P11. It's Nico Muller in the apt. Crossed the line P14, I believe, but of course with, again, 5-second time penalties, elevated him up to 11th and just missing out on a point, and the first points it would have been for the apt Cupra team as well. Nico Muller this weekend, I thought, drove solidly. There's not really much else I can say other than that. He was behind Van Der Linde though, wasn't he? So Nico Muller had the slightly better qualifying position of 18th compared to Van Der Linde's car not getting out for qualifying, so dead last. And then come the end of lap 1, Van Der Linde was ahead of him in 21st. Muller was 22nd. So, you know, didn't have a great start from that okay starting position for himself. But overall, I do feel that he drove a clean race and came as close to the points as was possibly realistic. You know, again, frustration would be creeping in that he didn't secure a point when he could have easily done it. But that's one of those things, isn't it? So for Nico Muller, it's going to be 6 points on the cruel corner to him. It's still so difficult to judge these apps and how I'm going to rate them accordingly. I can't say it was a stunning drive by not scoring points, but again, I have to commend it was better than average because we nearly got points. But then, he only nearly got points as a result of 5-second time penalties. So, you know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a difficult one. It was just a bit of a messy weekend overall this weekend, not just by the teams and drivers, but also with the FIA as well, with the penalties. So, yeah, 6 points to Nico Muller. So close to points. It's got to happen at some point, surely. Then we come to Sacha Fenestraz, and what a shame. What a shame. What a shame for Sacha Fenestraz. A fantastic qualifying, a fantastic race all the way up until he got involved in an incident that wasn't his fault whatsoever. He just got caught up in it, and then we go tumbled to the back of the field practically. And from there on, just tried to recover the best he could, and here he is just finishing in P12 overall. So, outside the points. What a shame, what a shame. Based on the race overall from himself, of course, he's going to be 8 points on the cruel corner to him. I thought he drove a stunning race up until that point where his race come undone due to no fault of his own. A cracking qualifying and really doing well in his rookie season. He deserved a lot more from this race weekend. So yeah, keep your chin up, Sacha. You're going to get some strong results. A podium this season's coming for you as well. And yeah, you really do deserve the 8 points that I'm awarding you on the cruel corner. Then we come to Max Gunther. Oh dear, Max. What a shame. What a shame. He'd driven so well. And was caught up in that incident between chuffing Bird and Evans, and oh god, the innocent party. Him and Sacha Fenestraz were just so unlucky, weren't they? Just so unlucky to get caught up. Max Gunther missed attack mode, although he didn't miss it, I just maybe forgot to activate it or a problem with the car the lap previous. So that meant that he had to go for attack mode again that time around, and as he went for attack mode, Bird itself destruct. He'd already committed to going offline and taking attack mode anyway, and then he had to drive out of it and just avoid it in the wall and avoid it in the other cars. So a big shame, really, it must be said. Disappointing for him. I have awarded Max Gunther a solid 7 on the cruel corner. He's the only driver other than the apt drivers now that haven't yet scored a point in the championship, and I think based on this race overall, that's incredibly unjust. You know, he had a 5-second time penalty as well, didn't he? So he could have been in the points at the line. I can't quite remember. you know, it's just been an unfortunate first few races for him. And yes, he has been himself to blame at times, particularly round 2 at Saudi, where he stuffed it into the wall all on his own in qualifying, and then that meant he couldn't race. You know, those things are needless. But here this time around, just the bad luck continues for Maserati MSG, where he was in a strong position. The attack mode didn't enable the first time round, whether it was a driver error, a car error, who knows. He went for it the second time, and then it just so happens that 2 teammates decide they're going to implode and affect his race. Like, who can plan for that? What a shame. So there you have it. 7 points to Max Gunther. Unlucky for some, it is Lucas Di Grassi finishing in P13, although he didn't cross the line in P13. I think he crossed the line 9th. He was certainly within inside the points, and it could have been a double points finish for Mahindra, but the Mahindra team was really being hit with the 5-second time penalties. Thou shalt not score points in thy home race, I think was the FIA's instructions to Mahindra, and in Holly Rowland a 5-second time penalty, and Di Grassi as well, both for track limits. Like I say, I think they're bullshit. It was nice to see Rowland hang on. Big shame for Di Grassi to miss out, though. Like I say, I think he crossed the line 8th or 9th, and here he is 13th. No effort, you know, no points for that effort is disappointing. But yeah, overall for Lucas Di Grassi, I am going to award him a little bit of a harsh score, a middle of the road 5. I'm going to award him because at the end of the day, Rowland was able to stay inside the points. Di Grassi wasn't. Rowland looked like the better driver overall all weekend. Shame, big shame. I think I've been harsh by a point there, to be fair to Di Grassi, but nonetheless, still, you know, drivers are better racers, and you've got to be in it to win it, haven't you, so to speak. I just think he was hard done by the time penalty, but even then, Rowland still had the better race overall. So yeah, middle of row 5 to Lucas Di Grassi. Then we come to Sebastian Buemi. Oh, God, crossing the line, P3. Getting so close to going on the podium, and then they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, mate. You used a bit too much power at the end there. Back of the grid you go. He was hit with a time penalty of 17 seconds, which would have been the result of basically a drive-through penalty in the race for power overuse, which he did on the last lap. He ran down to 0 and pressed the throttle to get over the line, apparently. So there you go. He used 100 and whatever 0.1%, but that's too much. That's too much. And was hit with a drive-through. So big shame for Buemi, and a big shame for Envision as well. A double podium for them would be worthwhile and really good for their cause. But here we are, unfortunately, P2 and a P14 finish. So big shame. And yeah, it's going to be a middle of the row 5 to Sebastian Buemi as well, because at the end of the day, power overuse is power overuse. I have not got any sympathy for that whatsoever. If he was running out, he should have conserved it a little bit more, gave up as a position and just secured points, but instead he chanced it. It didn't work out this time around. So yeah, middle row 5 to Buemi, but what a great race he had, what a great strategy he had. Led it at one point, you know, overall a missed opportunity, but once again, how many other drivers this race have had a missed opportunity? It's crazy. So yeah, middle row 5 to Sebastian Buemi. Then we come to the last of the finishers, finishing almost a lap down in the end. It's Jake Dennis. What a shame. What a shame for Jake. Once again, we're seeing with the Porsche powertrain, not great over a single lap in qualifying. All of them were relatively down that way, weren't they? Jake Dennis was the best of the rest. He started 11th with the Porsche powertrain unit. All the other cars were further behind, 12th, 13th and 20th, I believe, for Lotterer. So yeah, you know, he drove really well in the race. He lost a couple of places at the start, but not as many as Wehrlein. Made his way back through the field. There was all the chaos that kicked off with the Jaguars, and that took some other cars with him as well. He elevated himself up to 5th from there, then it was 4th, and then he was running around in 4th, looking to challenge for 3rd after the safety car, and then plow, bang, straight into the back of him goes Rene Rast, and took his rear wing off the pods that are like that, like a Thunderbird kind of wing, and then he got a rear puncture. So that was it, game over from there. Big shame. And big shame for his championship chances as well, because he lost out to Wehrlein in a race where he could have gained a lot of points. So there you go. That's racing though. I hope that's all his bad luck out of the way and done with, because I do like Jake Dennis and I do really want to see him take a championship. It'd be nice to see that, wouldn't it? He's been looking so good and strong for all the seasons he's been in Formula E, so it'd be nice to see him do it, but he's got a task ahead of him to beat Wehrlein now. So overall for Jake Dennis, it's a middle of row 5 for him as well. I can't do much more. You know, it was a disaster of a race for him. it's a disaster for the championship, and even though it wasn't his fault, I've treated him sort of like a retirement, because once that happened, once that incident happened so late into the race, he couldn't recover like the likes of Mortara and Nato did with their problems early in their race. So yeah, big shame for Jake Dennis. 5 points on the cruel corner to him. Then we come to the first retirement on this list, so that was the last in the race, of course, and it is Rene Rast. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. He really just added to the terrible weekend that McLaren ended up having, didn't it? They weren't that great in qualifying. The race pace wasn't brilliant, but they were getting inside the points and fighting well. And then Rene Rast just stuffed it right up the arse end of Jake Dennis, climbed over his car, damaged his wing, damaged his suspension, out the race. There you go. So I'm going to award him 2 points, and that's a very generous 2 because it was going to be 1. But I thought, no, he did have the better of Jake this weekend, Jake Hughes that is. So I thought he deserves at least 1 extra point for that. But, you know, racing's racing, and that was dead unlucky. And a big shame for Rast. Another shunt to add to his collection as well. Not great. So yeah, a generous 2 points to Rene Rast. And there we go, there it is. It was the first of the disasters for McLaren, and you thought, just as it can't get any worse, Rene Rast stuffs it in the wall. Jake Hughes in the wall at turn 4, unfortunately. A very, very bizarre incident. According to Jake Hughes, his wing mirror was damaged after being hit by a part of the car that was on the track, so clipping that wing, clipping whatever was left by Mortara or anyone else, because no one had an intact car come the end. His wing mirror folded in. It was damaged, it was wobbling around, can't do anything with it, I'm driving, and then it fell into the car as you came round turn 3 this one particular lap, and it meant that the steering wheel jammed, and it just yanked him straight into the wall, which is crazy, crazy stuff. So yeah, bizarre accident there, maybe something to look at in the technical board about if these wing mirrors get the slightest bit of contact, they just fall off. Might be better than him just wangling around. Might help. Just a thought. I don't really know, to be honest. I've never heard an incident like that before. Very, very bizarre indeed. So, for Jake Hughes, it must be said he had a difficult day, didn't he? He had his lap times removed in qualifying at the start of the last due to the technical infringement caused by the team in qualifying. I'm not so sure what that was, but it was very negligible, apparently. But rules are rules, aren't there? It was a team error, not Jake's. And then so started the race at the back, got as high as about 13th, and then eventually the car just decided to kill itself, I think, really. If the wing mirror fell into the car like that and onto the steering wheel and jammed it, bizarre incident. So for Jake Hughes, it's going to be 4 points on the cruel corner to him, more than Rene Rast, even though Rene Rast had the measure of him in the race, but at least Jake didn't take anyone else out, and it was just an unfortunate incident. Let's not forget as well, Jake Hughes is still a rookie, you know, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt once again. Not once again, you know what I mean. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm convinced if Jake says the mirror got stuck, then the mirror did get stuck behind the wheel. It was bizarre. He came out of turn 3, and then it was almost like he just stuffed it into the wall. It was so confusing. So, yeah, very, very strange, bizarre accident. Jake didn't have the best weekend overall anyway. Probably would have scraped a point or 2 with all the penalties that he kept going. Yeah, anyway, that's that. So, yeah, 4 points to Jake Hughes. And then we come to Sam Bird. Oh my god. Oh no. Oh no. What can I say? Oh god. I'm just so disappointed. I really thought he'd turned a corner at Saudi. A podium for the first time in over a season. A 4th place finish. It was solid. It made up from that 0 weekend that was Mexico. He may as well have not bothered turning up. The car never ran once, did it? And I thought, oh, Saudi's been so positive for him. Yeah, I hope he can build on that in Hyperbad. And, yeah, he didn't. He didn't build on anything. He just climbed over his teammate. Oh, my God. He just got it so wrong, didn't he? So wrong. I mean, Mortara took his wing off at turn 3, but that was literally clipping a car because he missed his braking point. Sam Bird had missed his braking point by a mile, then got on the dirty side of the track where he couldn't stop because it was dirty, and just harpooned Mitch Evans. Unbelievable. And that, of course, then affected Fenestraz's race and Max Gunther's race as well, which is just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Honestly, I took one look at that and my heart just sank. I just cannot believe it. Just cannot believe he's done that. He will be destroyed. He was distraught on the radio. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And again, Jaguar, it was effectively their home race with Tata Communications as their main sponsor. You know, Tata being an Indian brand, it was... They had all the hospitality there. They had all the guests and they had a chance for a podium and... Oh, no. Not what you need. And not what he needs on the cruel corner. It's going to be -5. -5 points to Sam Bird. That it's unforgivable. You can't take your teammate out. You can't take him out at the sort of second home race. And you affected other drivers as well that were having good races as well. It was such a shame. So yeah, I love Sam Bird. I really do. But that was unforgivable. It has to be -5. It just is. I'm just lost for words. Still just... I've not even got words for it. It just annoys me. It just frustrates me. We saw so much promise at Saudi, and it just all came undone in India. -5 to Sam Bird. Then we come to Dan Ticktum. He retired with a mechanical problem with the car halfway through the race. Couldn't really show what he was capable of doing. He was sort of like close to Setta Camara wherever he was when the retirement happened. Big shame for Ticktum because Setta Camara finishing 5th. Ticktum has certainly been in the points with all those penalties if he didn't pick one up himself. And it could have been a really fruitful day for Neo, more than it already was. So, yeah, shame for Ticktum to miss out on a chance there to get involved with all the craziness and pick up some really good opportunities with the penalties and of the collisions and the accidents that happened late in the race. So, yeah, shame for him there. So, middle of the row 5 to Dan Ticktum for that. As mentioned, as I always mention, the retirements can only get a maximum of 5 points because I don't think it's fair to score them more when cars have finished and maybe only got 4. You know, so middle of the row 5 to Dan Ticktum's absolutely fair for me. And yeah, I hope he comes back stronger in Cape Town, and I hope Neo can continue this momentum of picking up points. Seems like they've scored 1 and they can't stop scoring. So yeah, next stop podium, lads. But for now, middle of row 5 to Dan Ticktum. Then we come to Mitch Evans. I think I've said everything I needed to say with the Bird incident. Mitch Evans, it weren't his fault at all. And then it weren't his fault why he were even there, though, was it? A poor strategy once again by Jaguar. Attack mode early does not work in these Gen 3 cars, it seems. You attack mode late because you get the overcut. The overcut's more powerful this time around, it seems, than the undercut was of previous generation cars. So, yeah, big shame for Mitch. He'd lost the lead of the race anyway due to the attack mode issue. He'd gone from 1st to 3rd and then got harpooned by his teammate. So middle of the row 5 to Mitch Evans. Big shame for him. Unbelievable. Cannot believe it's happened. Then we come to the final retirement in this list. The first that happened in the race, of course. It is Kelvin Van Der Linde that sadly retired due to a mechanical problem with his App Cupra. Big shame, really, because, again, Apps needed these cars in the race. You know, Nico Muller just missing out on points. Van Der Linde was ahead of him for the most part of the race that Van Der Linde was in. Could he have scraped that point? You just don't know, do you? You need both cars in at all times, and it just didn't work out for him. So, shame. A big shame for Kelvin Van Der Linde. I think he's delivered some cracking drives. He did 2 solid drives at Saudi, the first ever time in a single-seater, and he built on it here once again. Couldn't go out qualifying due to a problem with his car, so started last, not his issue. Immediately got ahead of his teammate on the first lap and was racing around there quite happily. Avoided Mortara's wing quite nicely when that came flying off. You know, just a big shame overall that Van Der Linde wasn't able to get to the finish because it could have been a point. It sounds crazy, but it could have been. Robin Friends, again, as always, we wish him all the best, and he's looking forward to returning to Cape Town just in 2 weeks' time. So maybe a little bit of a stretch for that to actually happen. But fingers crossed it does for Robin Friends' sake. I really does hope it happens. But Van Der Linde has been a great contribution to the championship, and I've got to think that some teams must have their eye on him now, just taking a look and going, he's not been that bad, you know, these few races. So if he doesn't race at Cape Town, Van Der Linde has done a cracking job this race weekend overall. He's done a cracking job for the 3 races he's done for the App Cupra team. He's kept the car out of trouble. He's not had any crashes, any incidents, nothing silly happening. And, of course, it'd be great to see Robin France return for Cape Town. However, if not, it's great to see Van Der Linde do Cape Town again. You know, another race under his belt, which can only improve things for him and make him more confident behind the wheel of a Formula E car. And it gives Robin France another month then after Cape Town to get himself ready for the next round. So we'll see what happens there. But for now, Middle of the row 5 for Van Der Linde, of course. Couldn't qualify, wasn't his fault. Retired due to a mechanical issue with the car, wasn't his fault. That's just one of those things. Tough weekend overall, but very, very impressive in his first few races in Formula E. So there we have it then, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Indian E-Prix at Hyderabad. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The scoreboard updated with the scores I've just awarded is on the screen now for you to take a look at. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, thanks as always to Dan Bartlett of formerly Mushy Gaming for all he does for this channel. Not just on here, but he does the Cruel Room series, Scoreboard. He does the intro for that series as well when that returns in less than a month's time. He's going to be a busy boy, helping me out massively, and I really, really appreciate it. I've got a great community of people around me that are just, you know, happy to help me and support this channel, and I'm happy to support them too. So if you can drop down a sub while you're here, then that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So thanks as always, guys, for watching. I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time for Cape Town, another debutant to the Formula E calendar. Lots of newbies coming this season. It's great to see. I love to see them go to different circuits and different streets and different countries. It just adds to the variety, doesn't it? I really do like Formula E for that. And yeah, I'll see you all then. Thank you so, so much for watching, guys. And as always, much love.